The myth around a certain game not being on Xbox due to the Series S has finally been cracked open. The Black Myth. The Black Myth Wukong. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. Of course, the Switch 2 launched last week, and I have some news about that later in the video, but I did do an unboxing video that released on Friday, and that's linked above. But we're going to kick off this week's news with the Xbox, as they finally have a big game previously missing from their library finally coming to their platform. So Black Myth Wukong is finally coming to Xbox Series S and X on August 20th this year, and it's exactly a year after it released on PS5. Now, the reason I'm covering this release is because at the time there were rumors that the game was missing from Xbox because the developers couldn't get the game working on the Xbox Series S. Since the start of the current generation for Xbox, there's been talk off and on about the Series S being a challenge for developers and holding things back. There haven't been too many cases of it, but occasionally it does come up. The most prominent example I can think of is Baldur's Gate 3. They didn't release it on Xbox initially because they couldn't get split screen working on the Xbox Series S, which led to Microsoft allowing them to just not have split screen on that version of the game. But typically you have to have parity with both versions of the game to release it on Xbox. For the Black Myth Wukong, there were initial rumors that they couldn't release it because they couldn't get it working on the Series S, which Microsoft denied. And then there were also rumors that maybe they signed an exclusivity deal with PlayStation, that's why the game wasn't on Xbox, which Xbox said they couldn't comment on other exclusivity deals, which kind of made it seem like that might have been the case. But the CEO of Game Science, the developer of the game, stated that it would take years of optimization to get the game running on 10 gigabytes of memory, which basically confirmed that it was indeed because of the Series S's memory limitations as to why the game wasn't on Xbox. Well, luckily for Xbox owners, it didn't take years to get the game optimized. Game Science put out the following statement about the Xbox version of the game after they announced the release date. Bringing Black Myth Wukong to Xbox Series X and S and ensuring the experience met internal quality standards was no easy feat. Fortunately, we were able to complete this challenging task smoothly within the first year of the game's official release. So yeah, Black Myth is coming to Xbox Series S and X despite running into some initial issues with the Series S's memory. I think at this point we're more than halfway through the generation, and most developers have found ways to make it work with the Series S even when they run into limitations, so I feel like the discussion around the Series S being powerful enough is probably going to calm down. I wonder if Microsoft is going to take the same approach next generation and still have their cheaper, less powerful console for a lower price, or if they'll just do one console this time. It was rumored that they were going to do a handheld next generation instead of doing a Series S-like console, but last week we talked about the rumor that they're putting the handheld on hold so they can focus on making Windows better for other handhelds. So we'll see what happens in a couple of years once we get closer to the next console generation. But one game that has defied console generations because, you know, it runs in a browser, and I can't even believe I'm talking about this game at all, is RuneScape. The ruiner of my friendships as a teenager. Like, I'm not even joking, there was so much drama in our friend group after everyone got into RuneScape, and the worst part was, I was the one that introduced everyone to it. I mean, it's not my fault and I take no responsibility, but still, it ruined my friendships. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about RuneScape to go down memory lane. I'm talking about RuneScape today because their parent company Jagex has laid off some of their staff. So the layoffs were initially discovered because of the RuneScape subreddit. They noticed some of the moderators had disappeared, and one of the mods commented and said that Jagex had been doing restructuring, which resulted in some job cuts. PC Gamer reached out to Jagex, and they did confirm that they did do some job cuts due to restructuring, and the majority of the roles were non-game development and non-player facing functions like operations and administrative support. They declined to say how many people were impacted by this, but they did say that they were offering support to those people. So basically, they tried to keep it quiet because they were doing an internal restructuring, but people noticed anyway. It's good that they're offering support to the staff that they're laying off, but the reason that they're doing it seem kind of vague. But either way, I feel like it's kind of shady that they didn't address it until they basically got called out for it. But you know who else got called out last week? Gamestop during the Switch 2 launch. And that's what we're talking about today. And a final story. So of course the Switch 2 launched last week, and it seems like for the most part the pre-order pickup went well. I got my pre-order through Walmart. It did come with a can of Pringles and a 20-ounce Coke. At first, I almost got mad because I thought that they got my order wrong and gave me someone else's order. But it turns out that they did that for everyone. But GameStop wasn't going to sit idly by and let Walmart outdo them and give a better experience to customers. I mean, gaming and console launches are their entire thing. So GameStop upped the ante, and they instead offered console replacements for some customers. So one GameStop store in Staten Island decided to staple customers' receipts to the box that pre-ordered the console. While the screen for the Switch 2 and the Joy-Cons are directly under one side of the cardboard, I briefly talked about this in the unboxing video, but yeah, there's no additional packaging there. It's just literally the cardboard in the screen. But it resulted in some people getting holes punched in their screen. GameStop put out a statement saying that it was one store and that the customers affected are being taken care of. Some customers already reported that GameStop reached out and replaced their console for them, so I'll at least give GameStop credit for acting quickly. But yeah, somehow GameStop always finds a way to mess something up. You had one job, just to use tape. While we're on the topic of the screen being ruined, it's being reported that Nintendo is recommending not to remove the screen protector from the Switch 2. I mean, it didn't really help with the whole GameStop fiasco since the stapler went right through it, but it's still good to know. So Nintendo did the same thing with the Switch OLED, but basically there's a plastic layer over the screen that prevents the glass pieces from going all over the place if the screen gets shattered. The original Switch didn't have this because the screen was plastic, so it wouldn't shatter anyway, but being that the OLED and the Switch 2 have glass screens, they both have a protective layer over them. So yeah, just make sure not to peel those off. But again, it's not a problem for people with the original Switch, just like it's not a problem for them to be able to play Switch 2 Edition games, apparently. So it's being reported that Switch 2 Edition cards actually work in the Switch 1. Now, what I'm referring to are games that are cross-gen but have a Switch 2 Edition. For example, Zelda Breath of the Wild will work in Switch 1, and they'll just play the Switch 1 version of that game from the card. Nintendo confirmed that those cards contain both the original game along with the patch for the Switch 2. So it's actually cool that they work in the Switch 1, but it makes me think that they could just start selling Switch 2 Edition games for future cross-gen releases, which wouldn't be an issue if they weren't $10 more expensive. I'm also wondering if they'll allow third-party developers to just sell one version of a game and just label it Switch 1 and 2 compatible. Either way, it's an interesting approach to selling these cross-gen games. But let me know what you think in the comments. Would you prefer to see them just release one game that's cross-gen for Switch, or would you still prefer to have the original version, which is probably going to be cheaper, and then the Switch 2 version be separate? Again, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing, wherever it is, to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And I always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.